Good evening, folks. This is Deb Delapiana, and this is your short take. Tonight, we're talking about a man I like to call Tucker the Fucker. And, if you haven't figured it out, that's Tucker Carlson, who I consider to be one of the worst purveyors of lies and misinformation that the world has ever seen. Anybody calling him a news reporter or a journalist has got to be short of more than just a few little gray cells in the cranium. And the notion that Fox is a news outlet is a laugh riot. They are the propaganda arm for the right wing and for the GOP, and they are nothing more than that. So tonight, I say farewell to Tucker Carlson. We will not miss you. I will not miss him, but you know what? I also know he will be back. He will be back on some news channel somewhere who wants to up their ratings at all costs. Maybe another far right-wing outlet like OAN or Newsmax or something like that. Maybe he'll create his own empire. Who knows what's going to play out here? We're going to talk about his first job offer, but first, we're going to talk about some of the worst things that Tucker Carlson has ever said while he worked for Fox that did not get him fired. So I did not take notes tonight, so we're going to go right over here. We're going to look at some of the stuff, and some of the stuff I remember now. I confess to you that I never watched him live because I couldn't stand to watch Fox live at all. I can't stand Maria Bartiromo. I can't stand any of those people. I look at transcripts the following day and read articles, but I can't honestly watch those people. So let's talk about some of these things. I did see a lot of this stuff on video on YouTube. Allegations. Here's one. Allegations that immigration makes America, quote, poorer and dirtier and more divided. It's, beyond the pale. It's dehumanizing. It's racist. It's just amazing. In 2019, Media Matters for America, which is a watchdog group, they found tapes. And this was at a time when he was appearing on a shock jock radio show hosted by Bubba the Love Sponge. Now, I dare say that anyone who is going to be considered as a legitimate news person is not appearing on any such show. But on Bubba the Love Sponge, he said that, quote, white men created civilization. That's almost like Rick Santorum say there was no culture in America until the Europeans got here, the European white men who, quote, discovered America, ignoring all of the history of Native Americans here. He's also disparaged many other people. He, said that Biden's immigration plan was part of the Great Replacement program. He did not like Black Lives Matter and went out of his way to justify why some of these unarmed Black people were killed. He also said that racial violence was a myth and that it was permeated by others. It wasn't really happening. He became one of the most prolific misinformation specialists during the COVID-19 using the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, the VAERS system, to claim that the COVID vaccine was, quote, the single deadliest mass vaccination event in modern history. None of that is true, okay? He's using dubious data. Anybody can literally go on to VAERS and report that somebody in their family had a vaccine, and if they died a month later, they can link it to that. None of that stuff can be considered legitimate medical information until someone looks at that person's history. You just can't go out there. People could make shit up and put it on VAERS. Which is why, honestly, I question why the system even exists, because there is no honor among thieves in the United States. let's see what else we can find here. There's more. He spread a lot of, again, and we saw this in some of the texts and the stuff from the Dominion trial. He was more than happy to spread Donald Trump's conspiracy theories about the election. I certainly hope Smartmatic takes this the rest of the way and buries Fox News. Okay. In all honesty, some people heads are going to roll at Fox over this. The one head that won't roll is Rupert Murdoch, who certainly knew that his employees were doing this. He knew that this was happening. He actually allowed it to happen, but he won't lose his job because he's the big honcho. So let's talk about his first job offer. Tucker Carlson's first job offer was from RT, Russia Today, which is nothing more than Russia's state-owned television. And, they would love to have him on there. They have invited him and said that he can always, have his say there. Because you know what? Let's talk about RT. RT will let him come on there and criticize the U.S. government and particularly the Biden administration because, Russia doesn't want Biden in there. Russia wants Donald Trump in there because they know that Donald Trump will hand the Ukraine over to them at will. Let's talk about RT. Okay, it's a propaganda arm of the Russian government. It's funded in part, mostly actually, by the Russian government. Chief Honcho says that they are in an information war with all of the West. Doling out propaganda. And let's talk about some other people who have been on RT. Now, RT was dropped when Russia invaded the Ukraine, but Chris Hedges set up light housekeeping on RT. And you know what? These are guys who won Pulitzer Prizes at one point. Why would they be on Russia Today? They can criticize the U.S. government. And you know what? Certainly there's enough to criticize here. I get that. There's enough to criticize in any government. But you know what? If you're on RT, and you're criticizing the U.S. government, just be aware that they're not allowed to criticize Vladimir Putin on RT. It's easy to go on there and shit all over the U.S. government, and you can be a hero there. And there are idiots back here who fall right in line with that stuff. I got off the Chris Hedges boat over this, and I own several of his books. Okay, Chris Hedges became a talking head to me when he joined RT. Let's talk about another thing that nobody ever wants to talk about. Let's talk about the fact that Julian Assange had a show on RT, okay? And he had full control over that show, okay? And he went on RT because he was allowed to question people that he couldn't question on other media outlets. But he also admitted that if he had ever published large volumes of information about Russia, he would not have been as comfortable on RT. In short, you know what? In truth, if Julian Assange had done that, he would have been thrown off RT. That would never have been allowed to happen because there was another reporter that went with Sputnik, which is another state-owned television thing, outlet that is another state-owned, owned by Russia and funded by Russian government. And he thought he was going to be able to go over there and say anything he wanted. And he found out when it came to talking about Putin, he was not allowed to do that. He ended up quitting. So in reality, folks, what we have here is just propagandists going on other propaganda outlets. And certainly Tucker Carlson will find a home somewhere. He brings too many ratings to too many people for him to go silent. He'll find another outlet somewhere. But in the meantime, I revel in the fact that I don't have to put up with this bullshit anymore. I will talk to you all later. The next topic of conversation is going to be what is happening in Montana with their only trans legislator. And it's not pretty. And we will have to talk about that. So I will talk to you folks all later. The YouTube version of this video will have all of this detail in it. See you later, guys. Good evening, folks. This is part 2 of our Tucker Carlson farewell. And hang on one second. Okay, so Here's what we want to talk about. We're going to talk about his very last show. Now, he aired this show not knowing he was going to be fired. And on his last show, he chose to talk about the Heaven's Gate cult, which made a ton of headlines in the 90s. I don't know if any of you people remember this. I remember it vividly. I remember reading the papers when the members of the cult were found dead. Basically, Marshall Applewhite was a religious leader who formed this cult, and he basically organized their mass suicide. But Tucker Carlson started talking about this cult for a reason, because he had an agenda. And so he was talking about Heaven's Gate. He just kind of came out of nowhere. And people would not put two and two together until he starts talking. And this is really the essence of what he said during this broadcast. And I did watch some of this on video. He says, quote, members of the cult believe they were part of an alien species trapped in human form. And they did, okay? Applewhite taught them to give up all human attachments, their relationships with their families, their friends, their jobs, their possessions, ultimately their names. And then he, paused, for some kind of dramatic effect and said their genders and their own bodies. And then he says, sound familiar? So really what Tucker Carlson was doing in this broadcast was going after the transgender community, because Applewhite had castrated himself and he encouraged others to do the same thing to achieve androgynous immortality. But basically what Tucker Carlson was trying to do was equate transgender Americans and the transgender fight for rights as a cult, which it is not. Now, I say this with all seriousness. I have a transgender child. I do not publish any information about my child anywhere on social media. I think social media is poison. I will not reveal where I am to protect my child, because even though I live in Massachusetts and it's a great place to be, there are crazy people everywhere. This is not a cult. And this country is in the midst of some kind of a human breakdown, to the point where I have honestly in my lifetime never experienced anything like the way people are inhumanly going after transgender people. Transgender people have always been here, folks, always. This is not a new thing. The right wingers tried to portray this as a fad. It is not a fad. And Tucker Carlson's show may seem absurd because people who can't put two and two together and understand what he was doing, they haven't been paying attention. It's not just absurd. It's dangerous. It's dangerous to minimize the plight that transgender people are going through here in America, just to be able to live their lives. They are not forcing other people to live this way. They are not asking other people to become like them. My child is not out there trying to convert people to this. What they want to be able to do is live their lives without any interference from anybody. But that is not what is going on here. We will talk about this later, but in Montana, they have one transgender legislator who was elected by the people, who is effectively being told she cannot participate for the rest of the session. We have governors who are denying gender-affirming care to people. That is not okay. That is life-threatening to those people. The incidence of suicide is going to go up in this country if this pattern continues. And Tucker Carlson, as a person who commands millions of viewers, the attention of millions of viewers, For him to be spreading this kind of stuff, this isn't news reporting. It isn't. It's literally hate speech in the guise of free speech. And this is the problem with all of the right-wing news media. There is nothing fair and balanced about them. Okay, it's not even an issue of them giving the other side an opportunity to speak. It's an issue of them telling the truth even, of being factual. They don't care about any of that. What they care about is riling up their base. But folks, riling up their base creates harm to other people. And that is not okay. So for Tucker Carlson to do stuff like that, you know what? He's not going to be missed. He's not a legitimate reporter. He's not even a decent human being. He is everything that is wrong with America in a nutshell. So again, good riddance, Tucker. Wherever you land, I will not be watching. I will keep an eye on you because people like you need to be pushed back on. But you are basically, in my opinion, a worthless piece of shit. I will talk to you guys all later. We will continue the discussion about Montana and what it is doing. That will be the subject of our next video, hopefully tomorrow morning, if I'm, not too pressed for time before I have to return to retail hell. But it will be coming over the weekend, if not tomorrow. I'll talk to you guys soon.